So it's the end of 2021, and around this time, a lot of people are beginning to brainstorm and think about what sort of things can they plan for 2022 as far as New Year's resolutions, their new goals and plans, filling out their dream boards, filling out all the different goals that they have in mind that they did not complete this year or back in 2020 and 2019, hoping that the pandemic will be up and we can proceed with all the things that we had in mind a couple years ago or a few months ago, but we've been prohibited or hindered because of our circumstances. Self development is one of the big things that I like to talk about with people, what makes them who they are, what makes me who I am, the things that have shaped us, and the things that we want to try to work on to improve on so that we can be who we want to be or who we have envisioned in our mind in the future. Because we're all having this constant fight of who we are, who we were, and who we want to be, and trying to take the good things from our past, bring them forward with us, leave the bad habits that we have right now, and pick up some good ones. And it's just a constant fight that we have to go through each and every day of our lives. So with all that in mind, one thing that I wanted to share with other people, something that I try to work on for myself that is a big problem that I had before, I'm still working on now, when it comes to building habits and setting goals. And that would be not focusing on the bigger picture as a whole. And that can kind of sound counterintuitive because you often hear focus on the bigger picture. But when it comes to setting goals, setting life goals, I do think it's good to have the end in mind, what you're hoping to achieve or to accomplish at the very end. Sometimes for myself, though, focusing on climbing the whole mountain is a really big task. That's something that's really mind-boggling. It's a lot to take in, and sometimes it can be overwhelming is really the word that I'm looking for. It can be overwhelming thinking about climbing this entire mountain. But for myself, focusing on the very next step in front of me is a lot easier to manage, a lot easier to handle mentally and to plan for, because with all the things that are constantly happening, you never really know what tomorrow may bring. It can make you kind of anxious to think about, well, man, am I going to have the opportunity to get to the end? What about money over here? What about this relationship that I'm working on right now? What about, me getting this house or get this car, these grades? So many different things to constantly worry about that could affect that bigger picture. But if I'm focusing on just the very next step in front of me, then I'll be able to say, you know what, let me just take this one step at a time and just keep going step by step with a little bit of self-discipline, a lot of self-discipline, a lot of determination, and a lot of assistance and accountability from those around you that you trust to help build you up and to encourage you. Then it becomes more and more manageable. And then by the time that you take 1 steps, 5, 25, or however many different steps, however many small goals, eventually you're going to get to the top of that mountain, and eventually you'll be able to achieve what you've really been wanting to do. So that's one tip that I had. Recently, I interviewed a life coach, Melissa Buckholtz, and we had a discussion all about life change, setting good goals, changing habits, removing good ones and removing bad ones and bringing in good ones. That's my bad. And it's something that she's very passionate about, something that she had to work on for herself. And she went on to speak on some more topics that I feel will be really interesting to a lot of people. So I hope that you enjoyed this next clip. The full interview will be out very soon, and I'll put a link to it in this video as soon as it's done. I appreciate you all checking me out and hope to see you soon. Bye. Now, as far as like challenges, like some people online, they'll do like 30-day challenges and things like that, or New Year's resolutions and affirmations, things like that. Are you a big advocate with things like that, or from what you just said, is that like a no for you?
I mean, you could try it, but I think that that's inevitably where people start going wrong. They'll do a 30-day challenge of like this hardcore exercise routine, and they'll do it because they have to and they said they were going to. But at the end of those 30 days, they may never want to exercise again. They might grow to hate exercise because they were doing this challenge that their body was not ready for. Let's say they weren't active before, or they were very littly active, and so they wanted to do this 30-day hardcore transformation challenge. They get to the end of the 30 days, they don't really see any results because in 30 days you're probably not going to see that much of a result, or they just end up hating it and then they're like, I ain't doing this anymore. Whereas if you take your time and find an exercise that you love, that you enjoy, and it doesn't have to be going to the gym and doing a hardcore workout. You could find I like paddle boarding, or, surfing, or rollerblading, ice skating, dancing, different things, yoga. You find something that you enjoy, you take your time with it, you listen to your body, you stop when you're having a hard time, you take breaks as needed. And you have fun with it, then you're going to want to do it, and you're going to look forward to it, and you're going to do it more often, and you're probably going to do it for the rest of your life instead of just 30 days.
Mm-hmm. I got you. So last two things, and I'm gonna let you go. The first one is a longer question. When sometimes we feel like we're in a rut, we feel like our life isn't really progressing the way that we wanted to. It's kind of stalled out. It's not really going anywhere. As a life coach, and as just a person that may or may not go through that yourself, how can we deal with feelings like that?
Yeah, and I get that too. I always try and have something that I'm working towards, and if I don't have something that I'm working towards, that's kind of where I feel like I'm in a rut. I get bored. I get frustrated with myself. So something you can do if you don't know what's next for you, I'll do an exercise where I'm like, okay, write down everything that you want to do before you die. And they're like, what in the world? I'm like, start. And then that first minute, usually they're writing frantically, like writing all these different things. But then you get down to 5 minutes or 2 minutes, and you're just kind of running out of things to write. You're like, eventually it slows down. Eventually you can't think of anything. All right. So then you have this list of all these things. And I'm like, pick 3 of them that are screaming at you the loudest. And they'll normally circle 3 or find 1, or, okay, pick one of which out of those 3, pick which one you want to work on next. And then you find something else to work on.